Well, hiya, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here at the Ruttenberg Library. It is Tag Tuesday here on BookTube, and so I wanted to do a tag for you. And this tag is a brand new one. It was created by James Holder, and it's called the Hobby Tag. And James very kindly tagged me in his video, and so I wanted to, go through and go through his questions here. It's only 5 questions. It's a shorter tag, but it's a tag that could be definitely expanded on as you're answering the questions. And so anyway, thank you, James, for thinking of me when you were doing your tags. I'll tag a few people at the end when I get done here. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first question on the hobby tag is number 1. Within your personal library, do you collect books? So let me go a little bit further into that question, because of course you collect books, if you've got a personal library. But what he is meaning by this, he puts, for example, specific authors, editions, publishers, genres. So do you have basically little mini collections within your big collection? And I do have a few mini collections. I collect John Grisham books, and so I've got every John Grisham book that's ever been published. Now, I say that, I don't have every edition. I've just got one copy of each of the books that have come out. He's got a new one coming out, I believe, next month, so I'm pretty excited about that. And it's a collection of, I think it's short stories again. I think it's got 3 short stories, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's what it's going to be. And so I'll have to get that one next month. I've been trying not to buy, my numbers are getting big in my library again, and so I've been trying to slow down on buying books. But I do know that I'm going to pick up that John Grisham book. Anyway, other mini collections that I have, I collect Abraham Lincoln. I've got, I've been struggling to keep everything wrote down on everything I have, but I believe my Abraham Lincoln collection's around 120 books to this point, and I have read about half of them. I also have a collection of George Washington. I collect sports books, specifically baseball, and so I pick up a lot of memoirs or biographies. Various sorts. It just so happens that a lot of them are New York Yankees books. I am a Kansas City Royals fan, but the Yankees, they've got that long tradition of success, going just way back to the beginning of the 1900s. They've always had a successful team. They've won more World Series titles than any team. And so, and I've never looked at it, but I'm going to guess I got more people in the Hall of Fame than any other team. So it's pretty easy to pick up a collection of New York Yankees books just because of that, because they put out more memoirs and biographies of their players. So I do know that a lot of them in my collection deal with the New York Yankees. Let's see, what else? I got a pretty good Civil War collection in my library. And then the other mini subgenre would be genealogy. I have a lot of genealogy books. I spent a lot of time studying my genealogy, my family's history, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next question or two. So, and long story short, yes, I have little mini collections. Anytime I see Abraham Lincoln, I usually buy it. George Washington, I usually buy it. And baseball, I always buy it. And when the new Grisham comes out, I always buy it. So I've got several collections there. Let's see here. And then I wanted to mention, if I had more space, if we ever get a bigger house with more library space, more space for my books, I would like to grow my collection of Ben Franklin, Theodore Roosevelt, and then just the subject of the Battle of Gettysburg. Those are 3 other areas where I wouldn't mind adding books to my collection. So, question number 2, what are your non-bookish hobbies? Okay, so I alluded to genealogy. So If you're new to the channel, you might not know, but I am adopted. I was taken out of the home and put into foster care in, what year was it? 1987, I believe was the year. And it was basically Christmas of first grade is when I got taken out and put into foster care. And I bounced around through several different foster homes when I was from first, second, third, fourth grade. And then I finally got adopted when I was in fifth grade, the summer going into fifth grade. And so, growing up, there were a lot of family stories that I did not know just because I got pulled out of the home and I didn't get those conversations when I was little, sitting in grandma and grandpa's lap listening to old people's stories. I put it like this because I am the old person who tells stories now. So I have to be careful how I put that. But, just the family lore, the all those stories that kids always get when they're listening to grandma, grandpa, or mom and dad, talk about their childhood. And I didn't get that. And so, I was, how do you say it? I was emotionally going through stuff and processing stuff. So if I backtrack to fifth grade, when I first got adopted, one of the things that they recommended was for me to be put into therapy, just to help process that changeover in family. And I only went through a couple of sessions of therapy, and then we stopped going. And I think at the time that my adopted parents and the therapist thought that I was good to go. I was okay with everything that was going on. One of the things that I realized as an adult looking back is I had this tendency to acclimate to the environment around me. It was, I was able to adapt. I adapted very, very well. I made friends pretty easily with just about everybody. I was always friends in everybody's groups. Now, one of the things I did notice growing up is I didn't have a lot of super close friends until I got adopted, and I actually stayed in a home for a really long time. So I could pick up friends quickly, but they weren't super close friends. And I don't know if that's just me guarding myself, but anyway, speed along the story. I think there was a lot of stuff I did not process as a child, and when I went through the adoption process. And then it was probably 12, 14 years ago, right around that time period, 2008, 2010, right in there. I just emotionally was going through a lot of stuff. I was starting to maybe just then process everything that had went on when I was a kid. So I was in my late 20s at that point. And I wanted to know some of those stories that I know that I didn't get. What was my family like? Why am I who I am? What made me? What environment affected my parents? What environment affected my grandparents? Just what was life like? And so, getting back to the original question, my non-bookish hobbies, genealogy became my hobby. And I started doing research, and of course the internet really helped with that because a lot of stuff is online now. And I started finding all kinds of stuff online. I found birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates, newspaper stories, just all kinds of various things. And of course, back around that time, the census of 1940 came out right about then. And of course, 1950 just came out. So we had this huge influx of new records that came out that deal with the census. And so I was collecting all that data and processing that. And in the whole scheme of things, one of the things that I found was there was a lot of things about my family I didn't know, first of all. And then second of all, I got back in touch with my grandma. And it's really good that I did because this would be my maternal grandma. She was nearing the end of her life, and there was just a lot of stuff. I made contact with her, and I knew her from when I was younger. I was very familiar with her. She helped us a lot when we were little kids. And through the genealogy studies that I did, I was able to, build that relationship back up, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. And so genealogy has definitely been a non-bookish hobby. The only problem is genealogy, just like my personal library, it grows. You find record after record after record after record, and then you have to store them somewhere. And of course, you can do that digitally, but I'm a paper guy. And so this became one of those hobbies that I collected a lot of stuff, and then I put it, on the shelf, and I haven't went back to it. But like I said, the 1950 census has come out, so I'm probably going to get back into that a little bit this summer and start digging again. And I will probably go through a wave of, a year or two of, digging through the records, and then I'll put it away again and come back to it another time. Some other non-bookish hobbies. I always love baseball cards. And of course, I have a story for that too. When I was younger, one of the foster homes I was in, the lady I was with, she had daycare in her house. And what she did with her kids was, if you were behaved, you got a sticker for that day on the chart. You had a big sticker chart, and then if you filled out, I don't know, 5 stickers for the week, you got to pick a prize out of the box. And so I kind of joined in on that. And one of the prizes that she had was packs of baseball cards. This was the year 1989, the summer of 1989. And so my baseball card collection started out with 1989 Topps, 1989 Donruss. Those are my 2 favorite sets of cards, I guess, just because of the nostalgia of that. And that really got me into baseball. I started staying up, well, I say late, but 9 o'clock, watching the evening baseball game. And I would take my baseball cards and I would try to pick out, whoever was playing. Let's say it's the Royals and the Yankees. And so I'd pick out all my Royals cards, all my Yankees cards. And then as they came up to bat, I would have the lineup out to the side. And then if they were in the field on defense, I would put them all in the positions, all the outfields out in the outfield. And then I'd have a diamond shape for my infield. And I'd have all of those people, or at least the ones I had, the ones I had in my collection. And I'd lay them all out. And yes, I know all of you baseball card fans out there are cringing because it dog-eared a lot of cards and that kind of stuff. But I was younger, and it was the very first part of my collection. So I'm at that point in life like, who cares? Because those were mass-produced cards anyway, so it's not like there's a ton of value. But anyway, nostalgia, keep that in mind. But baseball became my love. And, it was, for me, it was no matter where I was at in life, as far as my foster homes, everything always switching, rules always changing and all that. When I was dealing with baseball rules don't change, for the most part. They don't change. Baseball is baseball. It's been that way for 100 years. And you could go in and you know what to expect. Your life is stable in baseball, and I could engross myself in that, tune out the outside world and all the stuff that was going on in my life, and I could just zero in on that. And so that year, I was in T-ball that year, and that was my first year of baseball, and I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with it. I was the little kid who, they put me at catcher, so I'd always have something to do in T-ball. And I was always going through the full windup, and I don't know that I was ever fully engrossed in the game and knowing what was going on. I knew most of what was going on, but I also had my own ball game going on in my head. Anyway, eventually I moved on to a couple more foster homes, and they got me back into baseball around 3rd grade, and that was actual, pitch baseball. And they had me in center field, and then they played me a little bit at third base, and I fell in love. I was decent in the outfield. I could chase down a ball. I was pretty quick. But my love was not in the outfield. My love was at third base. And that's where I fell in love with third base. And they gave me my first taste of that And then when I got adopted in 5th grade, I got to pitch for the first time. And so pitching and third base are those are my babies. When I'm not pitching, I wanted to play third base. And I pitched my very first ball game when I was in 5th grade and gave up 12 runs in 2 innings. We came back and won 13-12. My team did. We had a really good team. But so I wouldn't say it was the best pitching performance, but it started what became a very, a passion of mine. And I went on to be a decent pitcher when I when I went through the grades and on into high school. I was like my junior, senior year, I was our number one in the rotation and got decent at it. I wasn't great, but I got decent at it. And so, in third base, I was an all-conference third baseman. Honorable mention, but anyway, I was a pretty decent defensive third baseman. My hitting was spotty. I was streaky, and my batting average wasn't anything to brag about. I think 277 is what I batted my senior year. I'd go through streaks. I'd be dry, cold that very first couple games, and then I'd get red hot through the middle of the season, and then it would kind of slope off towards the end of the season. And so, streaks, that's just how baseball goes. But anyway, let me get back to the subject at hand. So my hobbies went clear back to, what would that be, 1st grade, 2nd grade? It'd be 2nd grade, or the summer before 2nd grade. No, after 2nd grade. I started collecting baseball cards, and that became a hobby of mine. And then comic books were a hobby of mine, and this one goes back to, so I have another story for that. This one goes back to when I was in the Noyes home, a group home in St. Joe, and I would have been in 3rd and 4th grade, right in there, and I had gotten a brand new radio, got my own little boom box. Now I say boom box, the thing was only like this big. It was small, it'd play cassette tapes. But some of the older boys at the Noyes home wanted to borrow it and listen to music in the evening time, at nighttime, about the time I was falling asleep. And so they struck a deal with me. And keep in mind, these high school boys were like juniors, seniors in the Noyes home. And I was the youngest in the Noyes home, by far the youngest in the building. And they kind of took me under their wing, and they really protected me. They liked me. I was, the little guy that you tousle their hair. And that was me. And again, like I said, I adapted to all my environments I was in. And pretty well liked kid growing up just because of that adaptability. And so they made an agreement with me. Hey, you let us borrow that, that radio, and we'll let you have some comic books. And so they did that 3-4 times. Excuse me. They let me do that 3 or 4 times. And so I got to dig through. They had this monster-sized box that slid under their bed. It was, I think, 4 rows. 4 rows across, and then I don't know how deep, 2-3 feet deep of comic books. And so I got to digging through those, and they let me pick whatever I wanted, any of them. And so I remember I got a couple of G.I. Joes, and then I had a bunch of Spider-Man. I liked Spider-Man comics for whatever reason, because I didn't really know the difference between any of them. But my love of Spider-Man started there, and my love of, I'd already had a love of G.I. Joes, but my Spider-Man comic book collection and my G.I. Joe collection started right there. And so that started the hobby of collecting comic books. And I do not have nearly as many as most of you out there. I just have a couple of collector boxes full, and that's about all my collection amounts to, but I love them all the same. I collect Hot Wheels. Oh, by the way, my newest Hot Wheel, the new Batman movie. My wife bought that for me. She knows I like to collect the cars. Now, I'm supposed to play with this with my daughter, but I don't like to take it out of the case just yet. I like to look at them brand new. And honestly, I don't know if she bought this for me or more because she likes Robert Pattinson. I don't know. But anyway, we don't need to go into that discussion. So Hot Wheels, that goes back to when I was still in with my biological parents. My dad, he would find old Hot Wheels and he would bring them home, and it was a really cheap toy that we could collect. And he had built, he had taken a couple of tables, like an actual table and then a card table, and somehow connected them. He boarded them up or something, and then made a ramp that connected the two. And then we took, of course, we didn't have any money, and popsicles were a cheap dessert that we loved. And so we would keep all the popsicle sticks, clean them up, and then we'd take wood glue and glue them all together. And we made houses and buildings, and we had a whole city created. And he had black electrical tape, and so he taped off the roads and everything. And long story short, that became a very fond memory for me, and I have loved Hot Wheels ever since. It goes back to my childhood, and yeah, I love my G.I. Joes. That was one of the first toys that I got that actually got to travel with me from home to home. In third grade, one of the last foster homes I was in, my collection really grew that year, and I just remember the hot toy at that point was the Sergeant Slaughter subset within the G.I. Joe toys. I don't know if any of you guys know that. And it had the Army vehicles, that it had a plane, it had a tank, it had a Jeep, and I had the whole collection, and I had all of the Sergeant Slaughter subset within that, and then my collection just grew around that. And that was I've collected those. They're upstairs in a box somewhere. Someday I'd like to display them. And then the very last thing is just sports in general, because my playing days are pretty much over. I got too many aches and pains in my body, but I still love to coach, and I love working with kids because sports did a lot for me in my youth. It gave me family when I didn't have family. It gave me rules and structure, and it showed me, especially with baseball, it showed me that I could succeed at stuff. I didn't have to be a top-notch person. And so, there were different ways to succeed. You didn't have to necessarily be the fastest or the tallest or the strongest. You could have skill sets in different areas. And so, like I said, baseball really plays to that. And so I loved baseball. So coaching is my hobby also. I happen to get paid for it, but that's, you can get paid for a hobby, right? All right, so let's move forward. We got 3 more questions left. So number 3, what hobbies have you fallen out of and why? And I'm going to say all of them, except for the coaching part of it. But I've fallen out of all of them, and I don't know that I've fallen out of them, but I tend to, and I don't know how you guys out there are. You can tell me in the comment section below. But I tend to, I'll get a period of time where for a couple of months I'm really working with my genealogy, and then I kind of put that by the wayside, put it on the shelf, and then I come back to collecting my Hot Wheel cars, and then I come back to, I find some baseball cards, and I dig out my collection, I go through them, and then I put them away, and then I bring out my comic books, and it kind of rotates back and forth, probably depending on what I see in the used shops, in the used book shops, or the like the yard sales and stuff like that. It depends on probably what I'm finding, but it also, collecting to me in these various areas is a mood thing. We got mood readers here on BookTube. Well, I'm probably a mood collector, and some of it always, it depends on your finances. How much room do you have in your house? Several different things. So I say I have fallen out of it, but I really haven't fallen out of it. I get real hot in collecting something, and then I put it by the wayside. So I don't know if that's the same thing. I used to really, here's one that I have kind of fallen out of. I used to really love watching movies, new movies that come out. That was something when I got adopted, we had a lot of kids in our house. And so, going to the movies became a very expensive endeavor, because, you go to the movies, you also want to go out to eat and all that kind of stuff. And we just didn't have that kind of money. And so my mom on a Friday night would stop at the movie store back when it was dirt cheap to rent movies, and she'd rent 4 or 5 different movies and bring them home, and we'd keep them over the weekend, and we'd watch through those, and that was kind of our entertainment. So I always loved watching movies, and I don't do that nearly as much anymore. I've went towards my books. I've always read, but not nearly as much as I have in the last 10 years. And so I've really went towards reading my books instead of watching movies. So I guess you could say that, that one has fallen out. Of course, honestly, who can actually afford to go to the movies anymore? Do people still go to the movies? I don't know. Uh, I don't think people go to the movies even close to as much as they used to, like when I was in school. Things are just way too expensive. You used to be able to get into a movie for $7-8, and now it costs $15, and then another 15 for your popcorn. You know, you can't even go to McDonald's without spending $10 per person. You know, it's just. And yes, I know there are ways to do it really dirt cheap, but I mean, just on a regular night, you don't want to look like a total cheapskate with your date. So, I mean, I don't know how kids go out anymore to the movies. I don't know that they do it like we used to back in the day. So, number 4, do you regret dropping those hobbies? No, because like I said, I don't totally drop them. I slow down and then come back to them. Yeah, like I explained earlier, I'm not going to go into that anymore, but I get joy. Yeah, so I do regret when I put them by the wayside, because I get great joy in collecting my cards, my cars, my looking through my genealogy stuff and figuring all that out. So I regret it in that way, but I know I'm going to come back to it. It's not like I get rid of it. And then the last question, number 5, what hobbies do you wish you had? I was trying to think, I am happy with my hobbies. They are who I am, you know what I mean? And my wife, I think, has kind of come to terms with that. She knows it's just kind of a part of me. It's who I am. And so the only one maybe that I would regret, and I could still do it, is just basic toy collecting. All those different toys from when I was a kid, but that becomes an expensive hobby. So I do wish I could do that, and I would have to have more room in my house, because I hate buying stuff. One of my big pet peeves is buying stuff to just box it up. I would love to be able to display it, and I hope someday I can display my stuff. But at this point in our house that we have now, there's just not a lot of extra room, and I think probably a lot of you run into that same problem. But overall, I'm good with the hobbies I have. I'm happy. So anyway, those are my answers. Those are the 5 questions to the hobby tag that was created by James Holder. And like I said, he tagged me. Go check out James's channel. He has a lot of content, does a lot of videos, and always has good things to say. So go check him out. I'm going to go ahead and tag a few people here. I'm going to tag Colin at Page to Page. He's a new booktuber. He collects history stuff, and I would like to hear his take on this. Go check out Colin's page. Give him some subs. He's got some good content. I saw this morning he's got a new video out. I haven't had a chance to watch it, but I'm going to go watch it. So go check him out. Ryan at Book Time with Ryan. I'd like to hear his answers to this. Scott and Becky at the Bookish Bryants. They've slowed down some of their videos that they've put out, but I would love to hear from them. Let's see, Bryan at Bookish. He's always got great things to say, so I'd like to hear his take on this. David Wiley, fellow Iowan. I'd like to hear his. I haven't seen a video from Erica at Passage of Time, so I'd like to hear Erica and her answers to this video. And then the last one, I'm going to tag Ben at the History Fella. He reads history books and always has good things to say. I always enjoy them, or his videos. So anyway, if you have not checked out any of those booktubers that I just mentioned, please go check out their channels and give them some subs, some likes. Check out their videos. They got lots of great content. And so anyway, booktube, I'm going to wrap this up. We're almost to the 29 minutes, so I've blabbered on long enough. So thank you for watching. I hope everyone's having a great week. We've been blessed with some beautiful weather. I hope you're having beautiful weather. So until next time, BookTube, happy reading.